Yeah, I remember this one. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am Kay, your lovely host today, and we're going to be talking about the most cursed year of the Dallas Cowboys Cheerleaders. So in my previous videos, I have covered seasons 5 and season 6, but today we're going to talk about a season that is quite controversial. Revisiting this season for me has just been complete whiplash. I needed a good week to just let all my thoughts ruminate, and let's just say that if you're planning on coming back to making the team, season 8 might be one that you need to just tread with caution. But anyways, let's get into it. So season 8 starts similarly to that of every other season, where girls are lining up to audition, they're getting ready. There were actually quite a few notable candidates this round that get introduced right off the bat.
I auditioned back in 2008. Hi, my name is Catherine Dunn, and I'm 18 years old from Coppell, Texas. I made it all the way to training camp my first time out, but I got cut because I didn't have enough dance experience or life experience.
There were quite a few other candidates that were introduced. This was a season where there was just a lot of people that were thrown across your face. A couple of the ones that I particularly thought were kind of fun to watch were the twins, Emily and Haley, I believe.
My name is Courtney Michelle. I'm 25 years old from Fort Worth, Texas. I was cheering and dancing on Bring It On, and we were on Broadway from June until the end of December. Our show was nominated for 2 Tony Awards for Best Choreography as well as Best Musical.
All of the girls are now getting ready to participate in the preliminary round, and now Kelly is introducing herself to all the candidates with the biggest draw for this season having to be the start of the fan vote.
So there will be an extra judge. Our fans are going to be able to vote and choose one rookie candidate that is the fans' choice, and that rookie candidate will get a guaranteed invitation into training camp.
The preliminary round in terms of dancing was not as exceptional as other seasons. There were primarily 3 girls in particular that stood out as really strong dancers. We'll get into my opinions about the way those two were treated in just a little bit. We also got to see Tessa audition, and we're introduced to her knowing pretty much everybody who was a rookie candidate last year, which is so funny to me. She just knew everybody. So after the girls have done all their auditions, Kelly, Judy, and Charlotte head into the deliberation room to discuss the candidates as per usual.
Number 16 is Courtney. She was the little Bring It On dancer from Broadway.
When she said Broadway, I think I was thinking great dancer.
No. Was she short?
Yes, very.
Y'all are gonna have to bear with me because I'm going to get very triggered very quickly with this season, so fair warning. So now we're in the semis round and all the girls are learning the combination, which actually this combination seemed very difficult from a technical standpoint. It was very intricate. The choreography had a lot of power and precision, and now we're being introduced to the best, the amazing, the phenomenal, the talented, the one who I will defend at all costs. And if I see any of you slime balls in my comments try to be mean to her, I will permanently block you. Vivian.
My name is Vivian Relena. I'm 22 years old and I'm from Carrollton, Texas. Growing up, I've had some very difficult years. I never had a home. My mom and I, we were tumbleweeds, bumbling from town to town. We just ate hot dogs and cereal because we were so poor. It was difficult for me to fit in. The kids were so mean to me. I struggled with my self-esteem.
When the girls were performing for the judges in the semis round, I was pleasantly surprised with how strong a lot of them were, especially considering what prelim showed us. No shading or anything, but it definitely seemed as if there was a specific brand of girls that were being chosen to move forward. It will become more visible later on, but at least for semis, there was a lot of really strong dancers. So now we're back in the deliberation room and all the judges are discussing their thoughts on all the candidates that performed the combination, and it definitely gets a bit heated.
Okay, Little Miss, Bring It On.
Yeah, I put her appearances just isn't gonna cut it. I didn't see her as a cheerleader at all.
Tessa.
She was really fun to watch.
Her kicks were worse than bad.
I thought she was very pretty.
She was muscular. Well,
She was shapely.
Out there.
And,
She
but
had
she
on
had
a skirt.
She had a skirt, and
She had on a
sometimes more
skirt, and
fabric
she has-
cuts your legs off. 129, how many yeses?
She didn't make it with me.
Really?
No, I thought she had a lot of showmanship, but she didn't make it.
All of them did make it through to the finals round, and we are now finally entering into Kitty's domain again, her studio. We also get a little dig because Ashley, for some reason, was not in uniform. Or I guess not in uniform, but just not abiding by the dress code. But other than that little incident, Ashley Page was a very nice, welcoming, and friendly person.
My name is Ashley Page. I am 25 years old. I just finished my 3rd season cheering with the Kansas City Chiefs. I was honored with the opportunity to cheer at this year's NFL Pro Bowl.
And this is something that I was a bit confused about when the show was framing her. Essentially trying to act like Ashley was fake, she was only in it for herself. Even the fandom tried to perpetuate this rhetoric about her. And from what I rewatched, I'm very confused because she never acted that way. It was never implied, not even subliminally. She was just a nice person. But my favorite part of the Kitty workshop had to be when all the girls were doing their solos. They all looked so good. Specifically, Leah Zhou. This is what you call beautiful, contemporary, abstract movement. I am telling you, this is something that you would see if you ever went to a dance convention. If you ever went to Jump, if you ever went to Nouveau, if you ever went to 24/7 dance convention, dance awards. It was giving dance awards, to be honest. The movement quality, the choreography, the abstract lines. And that's specifically why Kitty was telling Leah that the judges were either gonna love it or they were gonna hate it. She knows that particular brand of contemporary dancing.
There's no in between for this routine. They're gonna go, she's psycho crazy, or they're gonna love it.
But at the same time, this was also when a lot of comments about Ashley being stiff would be mentioned, her being strong and stiff. Specifically, Kitty was pointing out her pirouette preparation and how she's kind of rigid, which is understandable. There is a rigid quality to her movement that I did notice, but I do feel it was a bit exaggerated, especially when she made it into training camp. Vivian's Tin Man dance, and this has become so infamous in the fandom. It is meme to hell. Interview day was normal for DCC. Wasn't anything out of the ordinary. The only thing that particularly stood out was that we got a proper introduction to Janelle, and everybody who knows Janelle knows that we celebrate her. We love her. I think she is probably the only cheerleader that is of the LGBTQIA, and we love that.
I am sacrificing a lot to be in Dallas and fulfill my dream of becoming a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader. I've been a professional cheerleader for the past 7 years.
We also had a whole section this season that was dedicated to veterans. We specifically got to hear about their experiences, like Jessica and Carissa. That is one thing that you can praise season 7 for. They had so many women of color rookie candidates. I was on the floor crying. However, the one interview that tended to be a little divisive and a little eyebrow raising was Courtney's. Courtney Cook, to be specific.
What do you feel has been your biggest contribution to DCC?
Probably my biggest contribution is just that I like to have fun and keep it light and, keep our team positive and having fun on game days and through practices and stuff like that. They laughed at me looking at the table, I know, but last year they laughed at me for talking too fast.
How could we send her out on an interview? She won't make eye contact. That is not her normal behavior.
The solo round, though, it was fine. The girls were good. Of course, the ones that I shouted out, Leah and Hannah, they were the ones that definitely had the most attention for being really strong. The veterans had an entire section. Personally, one of my favorite veteran solos that season had to be JC, my girl. JC is unbelievable. The field portion of the finals round was a little brutal. It was similar to season 7, where it's just aged very, very poorly.
Wow, she is fluid.
Does anybody think she's bottom heavy?
I do. See, I don't think she has an HD face. Courtney, she's pretty in person, but the camera
just doesn't seem to agree.
I mean, does she look stocky to you?
She's got really thick thighs.
And that's not gonna change.
Callie looks short and squatty up there.
All right, decide if we like her weight or not, because this is who she is.
She's really soft, though.
But now we're in the deliberation room for the finals round, and they are discussing all their thoughts on everyone. And this is when we start hearing some...
Not the girl next door, but a great look, sexy.
I don't see her as a wholesome Dallas Cowboys cheerleader.
Sexy isn't bad.
No, I love sexy, but let it be organic.
Right.
Really more about the bottom. I don't like the shape.
Number 29, Vivian Relina.
Too short and too bottom heavy.
I would work with her, with everything I have, because you can see the potential.
Callie Nicole, 35.
I just think that that the standards are higher for people that know the terrain. She should be in the solar system with her dance, with her look.
I thought she looked fine. She's not one of the skinny ones. I like her a lot.
I like her too.
We did get some veteran cuts that season, which for the most part did not really add up for me. The only one that kind of made sense was Terry, since she didn't have a really good interview. But Callie, and especially Colin's cut, was just so odd. And the cuts this round particularly were so frustrating. They ended up cutting in Courtney, the Broadway dancer. They cut Leah Jo. They cut the one black girl, Amber. They were cutting a lot of people this season, and it just did not make sense considering the people that they brought into training camp. And I try to be as willing to meet people in the middle as I can, but I'm just not understanding the choices they made this season or why they made them. And I remember seeing a comment on the subreddit that talked about season 8 was problematic for a lot of reasons because it was completely set up for the show. And I don't think I can unsee it now. But the fan vote, what we're all waiting for, right? It was given to my GOAT, Vivian. But that's not all went down during the finals results, because Danielle, who was a training camp candidate last season who ended up making the team, was almost not going to make the team this season due to her injury. But after finals, this is when things start to take a slight shift as we are now in training camp, and we finally learn why Courtney was acting a little different.
I just received an email from Courtney's mother that Courtney is literally on an airplane and traveling home to be with her family for personal reasons. And she's in the right place by being with her family. She needs her family, and she needs a little bit of guidance from doctors. So that's as much as I really want to say about it for her own privacy, but we lost a teammate today.
Hello, this is Editing Me here. I just wanted to quickly elaborate more on the Courtney situation because I didn't really get to fully elaborate on it in the video, but essentially it's been talked about a lot online that Courtney was just dealing with mental health issues. Some people who have read early DCC message boards also talked about she was taking like prescription drugs. One person who claimed to be her cousin kind of confirmed this statement. It definitely would explain her cadence and the way she was talking through that interview I showed earlier. It definitely seems that Courtney is doing much better now, especially if you watch the Then and Now feature. I think that was on season 13. It would seem that Courtney graduated from college, seems to be doing much better, and that does make me happy, but it also just kind of is sad that these type of issues just kind of get swept under the rug or they're not really mentioned, because this isn't really the first time we've seen health issues related to the cheerleaders just kind of not addressed. And yeah, just wanted to give a little update on what happened. But after that, we are introduced to a couple more training camp candidates, or just given more depth about them, and one of them was Morgan.
I have a unique situation. I am a single mom of a wonderful 2-year-old little girl. It's going to be a challenge being a training camp candidate and juggling making her meals, putting her down for her naps, tucking her in at night.
Now we are on the first night of training camp, and all of the girls are getting ready for rehearsal and going down the room doing their kick line. This season particularly had really good kickers, so when somebody didn't have high kicks, it was super noticeable.
Low. Tessa's low.
which was why Tessa started entering their radar. However, now they're learning their first routine, which is the iconic Thunderstruck, and a lot of the girls were hitting it pretty decently, but one that ended up really catching Kelly's eye is Vivian. However, there were girls that ended up struggling in the routine, specifically Morgan. She was not picking up the choreography. She ended up just kind of pausing and stopping, which... Ashley Michelle was another one who ended up getting on their radar as well for not hitting the choreography. Emily was another one that also was struggling a bit with the routines as well. She didn't seem to have a lot of dance training, even though she did. Kelly and Judy would almost always question her dance training. The one comment that they would say often this season would be, well, show that.
How much dance experience, technical dance experience have you had?
Well, I took ballet since I was 10, and I was taking it in college as well.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay, then show us that.
However, during the first couple of nights was also when you would start seeing Kelly and Judy weighing in the girls. You would actually see it on screen. You would also hear a lot more comments about Vivian's.
Out of you, me and you. Did Vivian turn your head in the mall?
No.
Really?
Specifically if she was chunky, bulky, is it jiggling?
Vivian, I can't figure out if it's stocky or bulky. It's jiggling. Or chunky.
Oh, Lord. But now we are at the end of the first couple of nights of training camp, and they are now pulling in, of course, 3 girls into the office. They pulled in Danielle, Morgan, and Catherine. Starting with Danielle. Danielle was called in because of her injury, and specifically that she needed to tone up. Next up is Morgan. Morgan is also called in due to her not being able to pick up the choreography, and that Kelly wants to help Morgan stay there as long as possible, which is very telling. And lastly, we had Catherine. She was called in due to her lack of dance training and the way she moves in the choreography. She just does not look like she has a technical background. The next rehearsal we're shown is when all of the training camp candidates are learning the iconic kick line. Kelly and Judy are taking notes of the girls who are struggling, specifically Emily and Tessa. Emily was struggling with the arm positions and making sure she's not pulling down on the other girls, which is the hardest part of kick line. You're basically kicking with no support. Even though you're linked to people, you're supposed to essentially kick by yourself. Tessa's main issue with her kicks was flexibility, but I would also argue that placement was another issue with her. She would often move her body towards her leg, and her feet and her hips weren't fully turned out. But the most infamous parts of them doing the kick line that night had to be when Ashley fell to the floor while she was kicking.
That was like a mess.
She fell out of stupidity. Obviously, that's not something I want to happen for my first kick line in front of Kelly and Judy.
But the next office visit that were shown is with Vivian, Tessa, and Emily. Emily was called in due to the awkwardness of her movements and her technical training. Tessa's main thing was her flexibility in the kick line. And then lastly, we had Vivian. Vivian was called in to talk about her appearance, specifically her weight. And they were also trying to clarify that she did not just make training camp due to the fans.
And the reality with our judges is that if our squad stopped here, our judges had you up here. So you would have made it without the fans.
But it also seemed that Kelly and Judy were on Vivian's side for a decent portion of the training camp. It didn't seem that they actively despised her or anything. I think they were just frustrated with her body type since they haven't had a whole lot of girls with Vivian's body type in particular. And as someone that does have a rather stockier build, I really related to Vivian. Then of course we have the uniform scene, and I was pleasantly surprised with how wholesome this era was. I thought it was going to be a lot more traumatic, specifically with the girls' appearance. Vivian ends up going with Angela to do boxing, which was a way for her to lose the required weight she needed. Apparently she needed to lose 10 pounds, which, as we all know, that's really not feasible in the time period that they're given, but I digress. But after all of that, we would also have quite a few guest choreographers come in.
Routine, because it is a totally different style, you could see that other people were more confident in it.
Tessa ended up tearing her ACL while she was performing. But this would also be around the time when Catherine was just losing it for Kelly and Judy, and she ended up being the first cut of the season. As per usual with cuts on this show, this is when cuts would start drastically moving faster. After Catherine's cut, we would also be showed the cheerleaders going to a fashion seminar so that they could properly dress themselves outside of being in the DCC organization, which, if for anybody who doesn't know, yes, even outside of the organization, you still have to present yourself as if you were a cheerleader. The makeovers this round were also pretty interesting to watch. Janelle almost got a really bad cut to the point where they were gonna make her have a short bob, and I was glad they ended up not doing that. That would have been disastrous. Tessa ended up going to Kelly and Judy to tell her about what happened, and she ended up having to withdraw herself from training camp.
I tore my ACL and meniscus.
And he said recovery?
He said at least 4 months.
Wow.
So I was like, are you sure it can't be any sooner?
Which is so heartbreaking. Like, literally the last season, the training camp candidate Rachel also tore her ACL. And it's a very common injury for dancers too, just because of the pressure that you're putting on your knees, on your feet.
But I don't think you're ready for this team this year.
I'm getting cut. Right.
Yes, you are.
But this would also be around the time when Caitlin LeRae would start getting on the radar, and Kelly and Judy specifically were talking about how she dances and performs very young. Morgan also ends up getting called in because she's also just not performing the choreography as well. And it would have been her last night too if it wasn't for Kitty saying that she did really well, which for those of you who know, you know, we'll get there in the end. However, now we're getting into the real meat of the season where we enter very controversial territory. The episode in question is quite literally titled, A Toxic Situation. The start of this episode is when we see Kitty arrive, where she always does a class/workshop where she comes in during the middle of training camp to assess all of the girls. This is when Chelsea, a veteran cheerleader, starts entering the radar since she is not performing the choreography well, which she was never really a dancer to begin with. This is when Kitty would start making comments about Ashley Michelle, making comments about Danielle, and other veterans who have supposedly gained weight.
When I call your name, would you step forward, please? Veronica, Nicole, Kim, Jennifer, Alex, Brittany, Danielle. Every one of you either need to tighten it up or tone it up. Just, you look heavy, and that means not fat, obviously, but you look heavy. And I think you need to do something about it.
After the Kitty rehearsal is when Kelly would start calling all those veterans. She called in Danielle, Kim, Jennifer, and Chelsea, along with Ashley Michelle, who ends up getting cut. And this is when we see Kelly do what she calls quality control, where she is telling the veterans that they are not going to take their cameos because their bodies are just apparently not camera ready.
When the girls make our training camp, they have to sign a contract, and one of the things in that contract is that they must maintain the audition weight, the weight they were selected at by our panel of judges. If not, they're in breach of contract.
All of y'all have gained weight from last year. We have made the decision we do not need to photograph you for cameos on Monday. We're wasting Bobby's time, and we're wasting your time, and we're wasting our time.
And this scene particularly has always been very divisive amongst the fandom. Some people tend to say, oh, well, Chelsea is fake. She's always been fake. But I'm over here telling myself, is that not what every person is probably thinking? They just don't vocalize it.
We were all told that we were fat, or I'm sorry, overweight. We were just told that we were overweight and not to show up to cameos on Monday, so we get a day off.
Speaking of cameos, let's talk about it. Cameo photo shoot day was something. Vivian's body commentary would be on full display over here.
Vivian's session puzzles me because she's pretty, she's toned from the front, she's just short and thick. She's in shape. I mean, I don't see a healthy reason to say lose weight. Huge quads.
This is also when Caitlyn would start to really enter the radar, as she decided to get a spray tan when they were specifically told that the cheerleaders were not able to get a spray tan before the Cameo shoot. But after the Cameo photo shoots, this is when we have show group auditions, which is comprised of the more technically savvy dancers on their squad.
Tried out for show group before actually, and I have not made it, so try again, and hopefully maybe this will be my year. Show group is kind of a team within our team. I mean, I like to refer to it as the A team.
The show group auditions in this row were also kind of funny because they had the girls sing the national anthem, which, woo, that was something. After show group auditions is when all of the girls are back in the studio, and this resulted in both Vivian and Chelsea being cut. Vivian's cut particularly had to be the saddest one for me because she did everything in her power to lose the weight. However, it wasn't even a weight thing with Vivian, it was more of a body dimension thing, and as I showed in the clip previously, Kelly even acknowledges this. So that just makes Vivian's elimination this round the most frustrating. And for those who don't know, she did end up coming back in season 9 to re-audition, but to be honest, I don't think Vivian's head was really in the game that season. She never got to be a cheerleader, which is unfortunate, but I loved Vivian.
Need to lose weight. So much to where it started to become an obsession, like a mental disorder, kind of like an OCD kind of thing. I would count every single calorie that I put in my body. I would, if I ate 1 calorie over, I would be in the gym for hours until I was in a deficit. If I wore a backless outfit, you can see my bones in my back. Like I was unhealthy. But I wanted it that bad. I wanted it so bad that I was like, it's fine. I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna work my ass off
because he was so close.
Because I was so close and I was so encouraged. So they started to just portray me in certain situations. Like they would be like, "Can you look at yourself in the mirror?" Or ask me like, "Will you say this?" Or "Will you do this?" And some of them I was like, "No, I'm not gonna do that."
Scripted reality.
So that's like my question is, so what were they trying to characterize you as?
So, and that's what I was getting to. After I shared my poem with them, Kelly was like, "Look, you're a good writer, but I don't want to drag this out." And after she said that, I saw red. I just saw red. At the time when it happened, it was devastating to me because I was that like super bright-eyed, hopeful, very sensitive, loving girl that was like, I tried to share a piece of my soul with you and you make fun of me on an international level.
So Kelly and Judy made fun of you when you left the room? Or
no,
there?
I think the CMT, the TV show. They characterized me as I was like super into myself and that I was like better than everyone. And I've never thought that ever. My body hasn't always looked like that, you know? And they cut me for the way that I looked. And so I was obsessed with looking perfect for them all the time. And so they were like, "Why are you always looking at yourself in the mirror?" And I was like, when you're...
But they told you to look in the mirror.
Exactly. And so you're in a place...
villain, so they
that's crazy.
You're in a place where you're like, I don't know what to do, where to move. That's a move that I did in my routine.
What's also kind of frustrating about this season is episode 7, mainly because it just felt like they had some sort of infatuation with Morgan and Caitlyn. For starters, during their first field rehearsal, we can see Ashley Page start getting critique after critique after critique after critique, and it's over very minute things such as her stiff arms when she's moving on the entrance. Meanwhile, Caitlyn was doing the entrance and Judy and Kelly were kind of commenting that she's just not hitting it properly. Judy was even saying that she was fighting for Caitlyn, but because of the whole spray tan incident, she's not on their side, which I guess didn't really matter in the end. And then they would bring Morgan, Caitlyn, and Ashley into the office several times. They were giving Morgan chance after chance after chance after chance.
Defeated? Scared? You're crying.
something.
What's your breaking point?
I just don't want to disappoint. That's just like my main goal.
Caitlin was called into the office again, and this time they were talking about her weight for the first time.
Tonight, we noticed some of your kind of clumsy moments. The other thing is I think you can lose about 5 pounds.
So at the end of episode 7 was when Kitty would return back and watch all of the girls do the combos, and she had some of the same evaluations that a lot of the other judges and guest choreographers had over both Morgan and Caitlin and Ashley. All those girls were called back into the office again, and this time they only ended up cutting Ashley Page, simply stating that her style is not their style. Caitlin's office visit during that episode was supposed to end at her cut, but for some reason they just didn't cut her.
Well, Caitlin, you're a beautiful girl, a beautiful figure, and a great presence that could be a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader. You are not ready for this team as a dancer. You're inconsistent and you seem overwhelmed with this choreography.
Tonight should be your last night.
I just don't think you're going to be ready this year.
I thought I've improved, and I think I am.
Do you think she's improved?
Yes. I'm not sure that it's at a fast enough pace.
This is my life, and I've moved up here, and my life revolves around this right now.
She's so flippin' pretty.
Morgan's office visit during this part was probably the most frustrating because it just seemed that they're repeating themselves over and over and over again.
Yes, you have memory mistakes. What do we do?
Keep me.
How do you get your memory?
Just work at it.
I have the passion. It's all there.
I just have to turn it around.
You were better with the choreography tonight, you were fun to watch tonight, and you do show some potential with our dance routines.
Yeah. So during the final episode was when all the girls are back on the field and they are going over routines. Morgan ends up messing up quite a bit during this section. Caitlin was doing overall fine, but there were just certain parts of the choreography where she needed to fine-tune things. And this is when Kelly ends up bringing Mia, who was a 5th-year veteran at the time, asking her if Morgan is making these mistakes because she doesn't know it or if it's just nerves.
Mia.
I put you on the spot. Do you believe in Morgan? Do you think she can handle it?
I think there's memory issues, learning wise, but mistakes like that, really big. I think that was nerves.
So after that conversation, Kelly and Judy are at the shocking conclusion that there are 39 girls in training camp and they only have 37 lockers. However, they ended up deciding to just keep all 39 of those girls, and everyone made the team.
Now it's time to talk about what we see. We're out of time. I see 12 rookies that are working really hard. I see 27 veterans that are helping us lead this machine. I see 39 people that have a lot to learn. I also see 39 people that I think are worth our efforts. We see our new team.
You know, I don't agree. I usually have disagreements with the way the team is chosen, but this round I tend to have a lot more disagreements. And for those who don't know, based on what I could find, it would seem that Morgan's parents were connected with Kitty, and she was really pulling for Morgan to make the team. We don't know how much that is true. That is just speculation from people that have some inside knowledge. But if that's true, that would explain a lot. But for the life of me, I really don't understand how Caitlin ended up making the team. And in Caitlin's case, I think it's even more unfortunate because she didn't even end up performing throughout the entirety of the season. She ended up stopping in October due to some family complications, and she was trying to do things to lose weight. She still ended up remaining on the team for the whole season, but she just ended up fading into the background and she didn't audition again, which is so bizarre because I guarantee they probably put her on the squad because she was 18 and she probably would have stayed on the squad for a few years, but she ended up just leaving. And unfortunately, Morgan didn't even make it back the following year. She ended up just getting cut at finals. I don't know, it just didn't really seem as if putting them on the team was probably worth it in the long run. And I don't even think having 39 girls was justifiable for the performances that were shown, which I do think was kind of similar with season 7, where they both had 39 girls, where I truly don't think all 39 of them should have made the team, but that's just my opinion. And that concludes the 8th season of DCC Making the Team. So this video was a bit all over the place. It definitely was not as linear as a lot of my other videos on DCC Making the Team, mainly because my thoughts on this season are just not linear, and I didn't even have an outline. I just kind of recited from what I remembered, because usually I have like bullet points. I didn't do bullet points today. I just want to get on camera and talk about it. I have so many thoughts on this season. Like, this season just makes me even more infuriated, because it just really did seem like the show was the reason why this season was so entertaining to watch for some people, because it was just not objective judging at all, especially looking back on it. This is also pretty similar to people's opinions on season 14. And yeah, I have unpopular opinions about season 14. I don't think y'all want to hear them. I feel like I'm scared to post this video because I think a lot of my opinions here are very unpopular, but oh well. I hope you guys enjoyed this little DCC recap video again. This was fun. I think the only other seasons I'm gonna cover, I think I might do season 12 and then maybe season 14, and then I'll probably be done. I think the only time I might pop in again for DCC might be America's Sweetheart season 2 when that comes out, so you'll definitely hear my thoughts on that. But that is all we have for today, and I'll see you guys later. Okay, bye.